The first to arrive was Dr. Hannibal Lecter. He brought his own date, and he seemed to respect her. They hit the dance floor with a jive and a jitter. Then he ripped off her face! He's pulling out her liver!
That's really gross.
Oh my God, what just happened?
He ate her face.
Yes, I know! I saw!
Speaking of saw,
I like to play disgusting games.
he broke his jaw.
That is way too graphic. I'm going to faint. Surely all the other guests won't be this rude. Like this classic monster, a scary hip dude. He's got a kooky style and a spooktastic look. Oh my God, he just hung the waiter on a meat hook. Why?
His leather face,
It's cutting him up with a chainsaw.
it's what he does.
Who is Freddy Krueger?
He haunts your dreams.
Ooh, he sounds like a real spooker.
I murder teens. You can't escape me, bitch.
Language. In my day, the monsters would just give you a spook. Nowadays, it seems they all just want to make you puke. Enough! The party's over. Everybody out. You all have no idea what Spooktober is about. Here comes the Wolfman. He'll show you how it's done. He knows how to be creepy, but he always keeps it fun. No! That was my friend. Why did he meet such a horrifying end?
Welcome in to a spooky edition of No Free Squares. Special for two reasons today. Number one, because Tom apparently has way too much time on his hands, and he made us personalized, ludicrous monster mashups for both the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, which hopefully you were just tuned into, and now No Free Squares, your Week 8 DFS preview. And it's special for another big reason, because I'm here with a person that I podcast with pretty often, pretty much every single Wednesday night. Chase Vernon, FF Intervention, is here. Chase, how are you doing today on this fine Saturday?
Dude, what is up, man? Happy Halloween to you. Thomas, I know you're back there. I know you're back behind the scenes right now. And I think you might need some help, buddy. I mean, I appreciate everything you did, but oh my God. I absolutely love it. I love it. I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Normally for folks that tune in every week, this is sort of a one-man show running through. I get parched, frankly. I'm running out of water. I have to keep talking. I have to keep coming up with things to say. It's great to have someone to cheers a beer with, have someone join me here on a Saturday. And we're gonna talk through our plans for the DFS slate this week before you head off to whatever Halloween parties you're going to be getting done. And I know this week you were out of power, so you were a little later getting through all of your DFS thoughts on player profilers. Do you get the chance to talk through for the people here live today?
Yeah, I mean, I was working today and work was like completely dead. So I ended up turning in my article for Player Profiler over there about an hour ago while I was at work. So I got to finish it up at work. Hopefully, Ray can actually get that out for us. But, just in case he doesn't, all the information will be on here, at least, part of it, to an extent.
Absolutely. Shout out to the GOAT editor, Ray Marzarella. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to be right back. We're going to talk through how we're seeing this slate build up structurally, what we think are going to be the most popular plays, what chalk we're going to stick with, what we're going to fade, and what our favorite plays are. We're going to talk through it all today. And a reminder, as always, if you are joining us on Twitter, please comment below the actual tweet, because ever since the death of Periscope, we cannot see comments directly through the Twitter stream, or hop over to the YouTube link. That's all on my Twitter page. I have the link posted, and make sure you can get whatever questions you have in, and we'll make sure to address that. And we will be right back with your Week 8 DFS preview. All right, and welcome back. We're going to drive down our Week 8 narrative street here to see what is that most popular plays that are sticking out, how our lineups getting built. Chase, as you often do, you sit there and you look at it. What's the first thing that pops out to you sitting there looking at this DFS slate?
The first thing that pops out to me is there's only 2 games, I believe, that are over 50 on the primary slate. It looks like it dropped down. There might only be 1 game. Am I missing one? No, it looks like only 1 game is now over 50 over under, and that's the Tennessee or the Titans Colts game. I mean, this is a low scoring week, but I think that you can actually use it to your advantage because we have bad defenses facing good offenses pretty regularly over this. And a lot of the teams who run a slow pace of play or run the ball often are kind of facing up against each other. So it could lead to a few shootouts. Like when we look at San Francisco and the Bears, obviously there's not too many players in there that we're going to want to tackle.
That's one you just leave right out of your lineups, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh and Cleveland, that's not a great one that you really want to attack that much. I mean, maybe mix in some Najee Harris a little bit, but that's not one that you're actually aiming towards. And then we have, what was another one that we were looking at that wasn't, Washington and Denver. That's not one that we want to target. So it's kind of nice to actually have, some of these games where it's bad teams up against bad teams to an extent, for example, the Lions and the Eagles. And a lot of people won't think to gravitate towards those types of matchups, but it could actually be some of the ones that actually hit the over. Meanwhile, the Dolphins and Bills, I think a lot of people will be talking about that one, but that might be something that we can fade if both these defenses are improved, which we saw a little bit from Miami last week, and the Bills look to be improved significantly over the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, since then.
Yeah, I definitely co-sign all of that. Things that stick out to me right away, a few things. Number one is that there's no elite tight ends on this slate. There's no Kelsey on the slate. There's no Waller on the slate. I'm not particularly sure that Kittle's even still an elite tight end, but whatever, he's out. And so basically your top tight end salary-wise is Kyle Pitts, $6,300. That money's got to go somewhere, right? Normally you're seeing people spend up $7,500 for Kelsey, $7,000 for Waller, etc. That's not an option available to people. The other big thing I see is those top rushing quarterbacks or the top single stack quarterbacks. They're not on the slate. No Kyler Murray, no Lamar Jackson, and maybe not necessarily a rushing quarterback, but no Patrick Mahomes, who's also one that just structurally people tend to single stack a lot, just usually due to the price of Tyreek and Kelsey. And what that means, a couple things to me. Number one, I look at the quarterbacks remaining, right? The top quarterbacks of slate now are Josh Allen, Matt Stafford, Tom Brady, and these are all double stack quarterbacks.
Yep.
Right? When you have Lamar Jackson, you're not usually double stacking him because a Lamar Jackson ceiling game usually involves a lot of rushing, right? That's not really the case for these guys. To me, that has a big, profound effect on how the wide receivers set up, because if everybody is double stacking their quarterbacks this week, there's just not that many slots left, right? And you compound that with the fact that there's so many value running backs. I think we see a lot of 3 running back lineups in certain spots, even on DraftKings. We see all these double stacks. If people do a bring back, I'm looking at these wide receivers that are in these games where people aren't stacking that project well. I don't think that they end up in a lot of lineups. That's definitely an angle that I'm hitting. And the other interesting thing for this slate too is you get these players that project really well at their salary coming off injury. And I'm very curious to see what people do with that. The 2 top of mind for me, Nick Chubb, who, my projection source at least has him as the highest projected point per dollar running back on the slate, down at $6,800 with no Kareem Hunt. And then Jerry Jeudy down at $4,900, going up against the worst secondary in the league, your Washington football team. What do you think? What do you think of everything there that I was talking about? Is it getting too little zany with this double stack theory? And what are you doing with Chubb and with Jeudy this week?
So I honestly believe that with this lineup and the matchups that we're seeing, we're actually going to be able to play a lot of quarterback, running back, and wide receiver stacks, which you're not able to do very often, because you want the running backs to essentially either get all the touches, get all the goal line touches. Meanwhile, you want the quarterbacks to pass all the touchdowns. But I think there actually is some lineups here where you can actually play a quarterback, running back, and wide receiver stack. So, for example, let's just hypothetically say that the Bills go up big time, right? And they're smashing and smashing faces, just smashing.
Smashing faces.
And, you have a position, and obviously you probably want to play Diggs. You want to probably play Emmanuel Sanders in that double stack. But what if you actually, kind of leverage and get away and use Zach Moss and hope that maybe Stephon Diggs gets 2 to the house or Emmanuel Sanders gets 2 to the house, and then kind of instead of, going and gravitating towards these 2 wide receivers, you actually create a difference or a variance in your lineups by playing Zach Moss, and Zach Moss gets you a touchdown receiving because they're going to be in the red zone a ton. And then he also runs one in. So all of a sudden, Josh Allen throws for 300 yards, so you get the 3-point bonus. He throws for 3 touchdowns. One goes to Zach Moss, but then they're up by massive, by let's just say 4 touchdowns or so. And all of a sudden you're seeing Zach Moss able to run the ball in for, 1, maybe 2 opportunities. So all of a sudden Zach Moss now has 3 touchdowns. You can see the same sort of thing happening with Matt Stafford and Darrell Henderson. That's a possibility. It's not likely, but it's a possibility.
I did that last week. I stacked Stafford and Henderson together. Obviously, he didn't do anything, but
yeah, Henderson was a major disappointment.
The process.
Yeah, that was a major disappointment. I mean, we could see it with Justin Herbert, right? Playing either, Mike Williams or Keenan Allen along with Austin Eckler. You can see it with Jalen Hurts playing Devontae Smith, or Wes Watkins is actually one of my favorite flyers this week. So Jalen Hurts with Wes Watkins and Kenneth Gainwell. You could do it with Joe Burrow, with Joe Mixon. And then, of course, I'm actually fading Jamar Chase to an extent. I'm not going to fade him completely, but I'm going to be playing a little bit more Higgins than I am Jamar Chase. We have Tannehill, with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown. They're both going to see a ton of volume. And then we have, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, Alvin Kamara with Jameis Winston, Marcus Callaway. Normally I'm not a big proponent of trying to chase the dragon and find the running back wide receiver stack that could win you, a bunch of money. Like, for example, Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams did it last year with Aaron Rodgers on 3 or 4 different weeks where he won people tons of money because he was passing Aaron Jones so often. Aaron Jones was converting those receptions into touchdowns. I'm not a big proponent of trying to chase that, but this week feels like it's the right week to do it. My issue is there's so many different options of how you go about it. There are so many different options that if I try to roll all these out, I'll have, 5% owner or 5% rostership of, 10 different quarterbacks, 20 different quarterbacks, because I'll be trying to hit each one, and to try and find the right combination is going to be difficult. So I'm kind of looking at this and trying to figure out which running back do I really want to try and play a ton of? And then is it worth putting the quarterback and the wide receiver there as a stack on top of that? And I think there's a couple of different areas where you could actually, make some good money on that. And by the way, I did say Austin Eckler earlier. I know that he's questionable. I think he might actually be out for this game, but yeah, it could be Justin Jackson or Joshua Kelly or whoever else is on that roster.
Josh Kelly, one of the mascots of the No Free Squares brand, is shitty Josh Kelly.
Dude, it's crazy.
He's
his
right
routes
here,
and stuff.
right there in 27. Right, he's hanging out.
Jacob, so real quick, how many routes did he run in week 5?
I'm actually not certain. I don't have that in front of me.
My mind was blown. It's 19 routes. He ran 19 routes in week 5.
I think a lot of that might have been game script. Like
he didn't see a single target, but he still ran 19 routes.
I think a lot of that might have been we're getting absolutely shit kicked by the Ravens. Let's get Eckler off the field. But it's definitely notable.
Last week, he still played on 14 passing downs, I believe, last week, and ran 8 routes. We're seeing some opportunities for these other running backs if Austin Eckler's in, and it's playing the right one. But anyways, as for your Washington point, Washington actually played a much better game last week. This could be a get-right game up against Denver, but we'll dive into that in a little bit.
I'm interested in this running back thing that you're talking about with these stacks and running backs. So what are the biggest elements that you look for as to when to play a quarterback with a running back? Because I certainly have some factors that I look at in terms of when I think it's appropriate. I'm curious what you think and where maybe the similarities and differences are. I'll get into my take after.
So the 2 biggest things that I'm checking out, right, is the potential of a blowout. But the blowout has to come in the passing game first, obviously, right? Because most quarterbacks outside of maybe Tom Brady and probably Josh Allen's another one, to an extent, where they stop passing as much and they start trying to utilize the running back more often. So I'm trying to find the game that could be a blowout and where you have a bell cow or workhorse type running back who can just end up taking, 10 to 15 carries towards the end of the game. Now, Zach Moss, man, does that make me nervous, rolling him out. But, if they're blowing up Miami, it could be the Zach Moss show following that. And by the way, I don't for me to sit there and play Zach Moss, he's going to be maybe 5 to 10%, but I'm going to take a couple shots on him because Kenneth Gainwell is a few $100s less. So I'm going to go with Kenneth Gainwell 9 times out of 10, but that one time, I'm going to make sure that it's in my, my stacks with Josh Allen. But yeah, I'm looking for blowouts first. That's the number one sign. The second sign is, of course, the dose score, the dump off containment efficiency. So I typically want to play a stud wide receiver just so I make sure that I get the guaranteed points. So I'm not losing out on those points. So, for example, if I wanted to play like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the Chiefs, I'll grab, like you talked about, a single stack, but I'll also try to play Clyde Edwards-Helaire in a game where I feel like he could do this to receptions or whatever, even though Patrick Mahomes doesn't target the running back. I'm still looking for certain opportunities with that. So, yeah, the dose score is the other one where, dump off containment efficiency, where I think that he could play a major role in this, but I need to find it normally in an offense with a stud. I did mention earlier with Jalen Hurts, right? And I said, I might play, Wes Watkins with Kenneth Gainwell. I'm not going to have that stack playing very often. I might have them in about 5% of combined ones. I'd play a lot more often Kenneth Gainwell with Devonta Smith over that one, because I just think it's too much of a variance. Like, you could see too much of a difference in score, where if you end up playing too many shares of Gainwell and Watkins, the chance of them hitting isn't very high already.
Right.
If Jalen Hurts performs very well. So the two of them aren't great hitting anyways. But if they do end up happening to hit, we're talking about a massive hit and a huge ROI. So I want to make sure that I'm hitting that ROI. I want to hit it a little bit, but I want to make sure that I get guaranteed points at some point, so I'm not out of my contest automatically without having a chance to work my way back in with one of the more volatile players.
Definitely. Here's my main factors on when to play the quarterback with the running back. And essentially, like, I start, my base heuristic on it is just, can this running back pay off in a tournament winning lineup at the same time as his quarterback being the highest quarterback on the highest scoring quarterback on the slate? That's really what it comes down to. And that comes down to a number of different factors, right? Like, number one is, can they actually work together? Well, I don't think you ever have to concern yourself as to whether Eckler is a viable stacking option with Herbert, because half his touchdowns are going to come through the air anyway. Half his production is going to come through the air. So why wouldn't you want to play Eckler with Justin Herbert? They're actually correlated. And then you get some cases like a Zach Moss, for instance, with Josh Allen, probably not actually all that correlated, in the sense that, Allen, ideally in a ceiling scenario, gets some rushing touchdowns. Of course, if you're playing Moss, you want him to get those rushing touchdowns. However, that comes down to that second factor, which is exactly like you said. How many points are they going to score, right? If they score 6 touchdowns as a team, then it's fine. Allen can have 4 passing touchdowns. Moss can have 2 rushing. Maybe you get really lucky and they throw one to Moss. So that's number one factor, is, are they going to catch passes? Are they actually correlated? Number 2, how many points can this team realistically score? And the last part is just in relation to ownership and contest size, right? So if it's a 20% owned running back and a 20% owned quarterback, probably not going to bother doing that, because odds are, they're probably both not going to hit that massive ceiling together. And I'm kind of hedging against myself. The ownership is lower. And the biggest thing for me is the contest size. Like, this week, for instance, if I'm playing a Bills stack in a 200-person field contest, which I probably will be, I'm okay doing like 4 Bills. Like, I'm all right playing Allen, Diggs, Beasley, Moss. Like, I'm totally fine doing that, and just saying, okay, I'm going to play the Bill stack. 20% of the field's going to play Allen. All right, fine. That means in a 200-person contest, like, there's going to be 40 Allen lineups. So that's not actually that many, even if it is 20%, right? And then I'm just going to play all these guys. And if the Bills put up 45 points, chase me down, because I don't actually have to score the highest scoring score possible. I just have to be the highest in this little contest. I would never be caught dead putting that in the DraftKings Millie, right? Like, in the DraftKings Millie, I'm going to pick one guy, maybe 2 guys, and have that lower stack. So those are the factors really for me. And it's similar with, like the Bucks, for instance, or the Bengals even, where you're looking at these options for sure. Another question I wanted to talk to you about that I wrote about in my article this week is the bring back. So I thought this was an interesting subject last week, and I didn't get the chance to write on it because I had life get in the way. I couldn't write the article last week. But we saw all these games with these high-powered offenses and these really wide spreads. And the question was sort of, if you're going to play the stack, should you have the bring back? And for anyone that's not familiar, bring back is just you play someone from the opposing game of whatever your stack is. So, for instance, you're playing the Bills this week. You're playing Allen, Diggs, and Emmanuel Sanders. Let me throw in Mike Gesicki. Let me throw in Myles Gaskin. Let me throw in Jalen Waddle, right? I've always been pro bring back, where I just sort of do it automatically. And I really had to think about it last week. Like, man, some of these teams are like favored by 17 freaking points. Like, do I really want to play a Houston player with my Kyler stack? Do I really want to play a Lions player with this Ram stack? what do you think on how essential the bring back is, and when would you opt to do it? When would you not opt to do it?
So, I mean, I guess by like Vegas standards, right? You would opt to do it when the point spreads are close and the high scoring game, right? Like
Let's
that's
say
just common
specifically
sense.
though, in these like big spread games where it's really people questioning whether or not to do it.
Yeah. So, you'd have to be a focal point of the offense and be pretty much the only play on your team. So DeAndre Swift, DeAndre Swift is always an acceptable bring back. TJ Hawkinson, maybe not always acceptable, but he's up there when it comes to guys that are okay to run it back with. If you have an offense where you have like one player like Terry McLaurin, right now because Gibson's hurt and McKissick is only playing limited snaps and, yada, yada, like he's always an acceptable bring back if you want to target that game. But essentially you need a game that's at least a 48-point over under. That's like, my rule for my bring backs. If it's not that and there's a massive gap in the point spread, I'm probably not going to, run it back. Like, let me see if I can pull one up while I'm talking real quick. We have the Cincinnati Bengals, New York Jets, right?
Yes,
like I can
great
run
example.
Joe Burrow and Higgins or Jamar Chase or both if I want to. I don't need to bring back, like I don't need to play anybody. If I wanted to play somebody, it'd be Michael Carter, but Michael Carter's still splitting snaps with Ty Johnson to an extent. He is running more routes, yada, yada, but I don't have to play Michael Carter because Michael Carter, although he's a little bit less expensive, like what is he going to get you? 15 points? That's going to keep you out of a major tournament, winning money because you need those guys who can end up providing that upside. And I don't know if that's going to be available up against the Bengals. Although I do like the dose score up against the Bengals. The Bengals have played one of the hardest schedules so far up against pass catching running backs. I mean, every single team they face has had a great pass catching running back. They are allowing a lot of points to the running back in the air, but it doesn't. Michael Carter's not great, at least yet, at being a pass catching running back. So he might get you 15 points. That's great when it comes to your ROI, but in massive tournaments, you need to get almost all of your players over 20 points or so. He doesn't offer that. So that's one of the ones where I don't feel the need to run it back because not only is there a massive point spread, the implied total for the Jets is so low that I don't want to go there. Now you can make up your own storyline, for each game. You don't have to follow implied point totals. You don't have to follow the spreads because the spreads are wrong. The implied point totals are wrong. Like shit happen. So you can come up with whatever, area you want to gravitate towards or whatever storyline you want to tell yourself. But, if you don't think that this offense could at least get you, one player in particular, 20 points, you don't need to chase it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let me look at another one real quick. So I was going to say the Seahawks, and if the Seahawks were playing, with Russell Wilson, it'd be a different story with Jacksonville, but there's not too many of them this game.
I'll hop in. I wrote about this a lot in my column this week, and I was curious on your thoughts. And I generally am inclined to agree with you, but you framed it a different way and focusing more on the total. And I think that's going to be really easy for a lot of people to understand.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest thing I look at is number one is the player that I'm bringing back. Do they have actual utility to the benefit of my main stack? In other words, like the correlation piece. And I think people a lot of times assume the correlation. How real is the correlation? And not just on my main stack benefiting the bring back, but how much does the bring back benefit my main stack? And then the other big piece is ownership. So on that first element, like the Bucks, for instance, I don't think you ever need to have a bring back on the Bucks because Tom Brady is just an angry dude this year and he doesn't care. Like if they're up by 35 points in the fourth quarter, he's still throwing touchdowns. He does not care. So to me, like the idea of the bring back is, okay, I'm playing this team, they go down and score a touchdown. And then, oh, great. Like my receiver on the other team caught a big pass. They got a touchdown. I get those points. And now my other team has to keep passing. It drives the scoring.
You have to have a motor. You have to have something that drives the energy essentially or the point scoring. But the energy from the other side, it pushes it. Yeah.
Right. But with the Bucks, like they're their own dang motor. Like last week they obliterated the Bears and no one on the Bears did anything. And they just did not care. Like they just kept putting on points. And so like, to me, I was playing these bringbacks, or I was playing the Buck stacks. I was like putting in Darnell Mooney as this bringback, and I was watching in the third quarter as Darnell Mooney continued to drop passes and tip interceptions to the other team, and Tom Brady continued to throw more touchdown passes to Mike Evans. And I was like, man, like what was I expecting Darnell Mooney to accomplish? Like what? Like the Bucks are still just scoring touchdowns. They did not need Darnell Mooney to do anything to do it. Why am I playing this guy? And then the second aspect to me is the ownership. Like, are they actually efficiently owned? Sometimes you see these situations where everybody wants to play the bring back so bad that the bring back to this really, really popular stack ends up getting over-owned, where they don't even actually project that well. They're not even necessarily that cheap, but everyone's like, oh man, I've got to play X stack, so let me just toss in this guy from the other team. And at that point, it's like you're not leveraging anything because everyone that's on the same stack has the same bring back dude as you. And you're not getting an advantage over the field because you're just playing like a bad play at crazy ownership. So those are the two big things for me. And applying it to this week, like the Bills, they pass the ball a lot. I actually like, there's some Dolphins I like this week, but I don't feel compelled to play a Dolphin. We'll see. I'll play a Dolphin in some lineups. I probably won't in others. But, I think that the Bills are probably going to keep scoring points, whether or not Myles Gaskin scores points. Anyway, that's I got producer Tom here in the chat telling me that I'm pushing the segment time. So we're gonna wrap here. When we come back, we're gonna talk about plays that we do want to do. Who's going to be sort of the main key components of our lineups for me and for Chase this week. What is that you have? Oh, that's a dog.
It's Bentley, and he wants to play right now.
Does Bentley play DFS?
He sometimes does, but normally he just distracts me from actually being able to make correct decisions. Like last week. Oh, good job, Ben.
All right. Well, while Chase tends to his dog, we're going to take a little 15-second break. When we come back, we're going to have our plays of the week ready to rock. We'll see you right away. Welcome back in to No Free Squares. If you're just joining us, this is your weekly DFS preview show. I'm here with my man Chase Vernon, my co-host on Dynasty, formerly Dynasty Intervention, now Fantasy Intervention, every Wednesday night. We're going to get into some of our plays of the week. We talked about the slate generally. Let's dive into who our key guys that we're focusing on, putting in a lot of our lineups, and why, strategically at a micro level, macro level, whatever it is. Chase, who is the player or the team that your DFS slate you think is going to be most tied to the success of this week?
All right, so I have a few different ones. Obviously, I like to talk about matchups and I like target matchups. But
let's start with one. We'll go back and forth.
Oh, I got you. I like to target like game matchups, and then I like to target players inside those matchups who match up better up against defenders. So, for example, Tre'Davious White really struggles up against big body receivers. He always has. Like, this is no news. And Devontae Parker has completely destroyed Tre'Davious White and the Bills defense since he came to the league. Like, even when he sucked, for some reason he still performed well up against the Bills. And it wasn't always great. He wouldn't always break a slate or anything like that, but he was giving you 16 to 18 points. Well, now Miami actually has good weapons, right? That the Bills will have to focus on. And I'm a little bit nervous about this because the Bills actually are I believe they're 8th in blitz rate, but they're 8th worst. They're 26th in blitz rate, but they're actually 4th in pressure rate. So they don't blitz a lot. Like they rarely blitz, but yet they're constantly getting pressure on the quarterback. And that's nerve-wracking for the Miami Dolphins because, they just don't have a great offensive line right now. So it could be a good and a bad thing because, hey, if you see one-on-one coverage and all of a sudden you're getting pressure, Tua is just going to throw it up, give Devontae Parker, some jump balls. But, if he's able to at least see some time in the pocket, right, and Devontae Parker can get downfield 15, 20 yards like he normally does, and he's one-on-one with Tre'Davious White, Tre'Davious White being 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", somewhere in that range, you could see.
As you.
Yeah, he's probably the same height as me. They're probably measuring with cleats on. But no, so I think that Devontae Parker, could use his body and be able to shield him out. So I'm going to have a good amount of Devontae Parker, but I'm not going to be playing too many one-offs of Devontae Parker. This slate, this game, has to line up well in order for it to happen. So if I have Devontae Parker, it's mainly going to be in this lineup. And, Jalen Waddle's right there with it. If Devontae Parker's out, I'll probably lean more towards Gesicki in hopes that he can, be utilized outside because, he's not an actual tight end. He's just a big slot receiver. So, it's going to be a lot on the Miami Dolphins side because I don't know who Emmanuel Sanders is going to be lined up across from. I don't know who Stephon Diggs is going to be lined up across from. They moved them all around the field. And Xavier Howard's been playing well, but Byron Byron Jones has been letting a ton of players get behind him and, beat him on the double moves. So it could be Diggs. It could be Emmanuel Sanders. And then we could see Nick Needham really struggle up against Cole Beasley. So I want to tie myself to this game.
Nick Needham.
Nick Needham, oh man, he's so bad. He's such a bad slot corner. He's so terrible. I attack him every single week. It's like Brian Poole back when he played
You
for.
attack him. You attack Nick Needham?
I attack Nick Needham heavily in DFS.
What? What do you bring to attack Nick Needham?
Well, obviously not Needles because he.
Needles is still on the IR this week. Hopefully he'll be back in week 9.
No, but I think that you're going to see some routes of success, right, for the Bills. Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious we're going to see scoring on their side unless Miami just came to play, up against division rival. Mm-hmm. But we're most likely to see them put up points, but we cannot determine a route. Meanwhile, I think that you're limited in what Miami is going to be able to do in this game. And so you actually can target certain, storylines to be able to follow success.
All right, I'll give you 2 here. I'll start off with one in that game really quickly. My favorite play in that game is Cole Beasley. You mentioned the Nick Needham angle for sure. Another angle is that he's $4,900, same price as Jerry Jeudy. I personally, what I've seen this year is very different than last year from DFS players, which is that last year it seemed you almost always got this post-injury discount ownership where people would come back, people wouldn't trust it the first game back. And in general, you're getting really low ownership on high projected plays. I remember Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook each one time last year were just smashes their first week off of injury, like 5% ownership. This year, people do not care. They are playing dudes coming off injury when they project well. And I think that's going to be the case with Jeudy, especially in a game that everybody knows is a good matchup with the football team. So you get Beasley, the same ownership. He fits nicely in the stack. And the best thing is, his role this year has not been as good. Why? Because they've been running less 10 personnel. They've been running more 11 personnel because of the emergence of Dawson Knox. I do not think that Tommy Sweeney is going to come in and just get the same role they were giving to Dawson Knox. I think they're going to play more 10 personnel. I think we'll see more Gabe Davis out there, and we'll see a lot more Cole Beasley out there. I'm a big fan of him, and he gets to go up against your boy, Nick Needham. My other favorite play this week, I talked about this in the opening, is all of these double stacks. You're going to see Stafford +2. You're going to see Brady +2, Burrow +2, Allen +2. Then you're going to see the bringbacks. There's going to be wide receivers that get pushed out that project well. And my favorite of those is DJ Moore. People are not going to want to play Sam Darnold this week because he's Sam Darnold. And people are going to be looking elsewhere in those wide receiver slots because of all these different game stacks and double stacks. And I think DJ Moore is going to be between 5 and 7% owned. $7,200 versus the Atlanta Falcons, who are ass. So I'm super excited to play more. I mean, he's had like an $8,000 role. And if Sam Darnold can just play like a quarterback who can support an $8,000 wide receiver this week, I think it's a similar setup to Terry McLaurin last week where there was all these different forces, be it either game stacks or higher total games, whatever have you, pushing people onto other players. Get out of here with your kicker, bro. Sam Darnold's cheeks. And you saw McLaurin, who objectively was a good play, come in at like 5% ownership just because there was all these other guys people were gravitating towards. I think Moore is a case of that this week. And Deontay Johnson similar, but I really want to talk about Moore. What's another play that you're big on this week?
Oh, let's go ahead and let's pivot out. Let's go ahead and bring it up. By the way, you want to know who's the same price as Cole Beasley? Devontae Parker. So
there you go. A lot of options in that game.
There is. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say Kenneth Gainwell in this one. I mean, I know it's kind of like a free square at this point, and it's something as to where like he could perform now. It does make me nervous, by the way. It makes me very, very nervous because of the fact that we're talking about a running back. We're talking about a team that did not use their running back when their primary running back was healthy. However, we saw them as Miles Sanders, started to actually get touches this past week before he got hurt. We saw them actually start to utilize the running back position. So I'm always nervous whenever I recommend the Philadelphia Eagles because you just don't know what they're going to do. And it's like stabbing you in the heart every single time because you're like, why did they not do this? And you're yelling at the screen and you're getting so pissed and frustrated because you know that Kenneth Gainwell should be seeing targets. And you know that Kenneth Gainwell should see some runs up the middle up against the Detroit Lions. And the Detroit Lions, they are not good up against the running back position. Their dose score is absolutely brutal there. Sitting at, 28th. With a 12.45 dose score, they're allowing 12.1 points per game to the pass catching running backs, and they've actually played subpar running backs thus far this season. So we're sitting there, we're looking at a bad defense, right? Who their secondary is not that terrible, but their front seven is absolutely brutal. And I believe they just lost one of their linebackers. Was it Jamie Collins that they just lost?
Yeah, well, I think they cut him, didn't they?
Somebody got hurt recently over the past week or two. I think it was last week. One of their primary linebackers got hurt.
Yeah.
I got to go back and look at who it was. But this guy was somebody that I was looking at as somebody who actually did contain the running back or helped to contain the running back because they don't really do it that well. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting to sit here and watch this development for the Eagles and how Nick Sirianni just could not see how the running backs were actually working whenever he utilized them. So I want to see if he tries to take the same beginning part of the game plan that we had last week and apply it to Kenneth Gainwell this week up against Detroit. And I mean, if it ends up being a blowout, you're talking about Kenneth Gainwell probably getting a ton of work, as a rookie that they want to explore because Miles Sanders, I think he's coming up in a contract for the next year or two. So they want to see what they have in their fourth round running back.
Definitely could not agree more on what the ceiling is for Gainwell. I'm really curious to see what his ownership comes in at because he's totally an ownership dependent play for me, and I don't honestly have that much of a feel. I think if the field's view is that it's going to be Scott and it's going to be Howard pulverizing a lot of these early down opportunities, I'm very willing to take a big shot on Gainwell. And I think that there are enough options down there in that low 5K range. Like we mentioned, Moss, I think Khalil Herbert should be pretty popular. Elijah Mitchell might be somewhat popular. But I could see Gainwell's ownership being low-ish, and then I'm open to it. If he's going to be up in the 15% range, if he's sort of that go-to cheap running back, then I'm going to be out. So I'm really going to be trying to mine ownership projections into the morning even just to try and get a feel for it because I'm really, really on the edge with that one, although I'm hoping just out of a desire to see some sanity that they don't play Jordan Howard for 12 carries. I mean, Jesus Christ.
It could happen. He looked like the lead back in preseason. I was surprised that he got cut, to be honest with you. I did not think he was going to get cut at all. I thought that he was going to be somebody that they actually had that would take work away. And I was very, very nervous for Miles Sanders because of that reason. I never in a million years thought that Miles Sanders, would be getting 2 looks per game. But yeah, and without Jordan Howard being there, of course.
Definitely. All right, here's a guy that I'm into, and I'll give 2 because it's kind of ownership dependent depending on I think how people are going to react to the Chubb injury because I think he projects really well, but I've seen some really low ownership projections on him. I'm not sure how much I believe it, but 2 guys I really like this week are James Robinson and Nick Chubb. Both I think are in really nice spots. We just saw Seattle get destroyed by Alvin Kamara in the passing game. We've seen James Robinson's role in the passing game has increased a little bit of late. And certainly in the rushing game, Carlos Hyde has almost been entirely phased out. Darrell Henderson is sitting there again at $6,500 against Houston as this glaring value and quite easily the best projectable point per dollar running back on the slate, at least in my opinion. And then you get right there around the same price range, you get Nick Chubb, who's coming in. Everyone's been dying for this for years to see what Nick Chubb can do without Kareem Hunt. But he gets this terrible matchup against Pittsburgh. He's coming off an injury himself. And I think that could potentially give you a little bit of a chance if you're willing to be daring, to be a week early on Chubb. Because I'll tell you what, if he goes out, he gets the 80% workload that people dream of, next week he's going to be way more expensive and he's going to be way more owned. I think this is the week to come in a little bit early because there's these different factors at play might keep him down. I'm going to be pretty heavy on Chubb, unless I see him get steamed up here in the last few hours before kickoff. And Robinson, similar. There's just not enough ownership to go around where people are going to be playing as much Henderson as they are, and they're going to have appropriate amounts of Chubb and of Robinson. I think one of these guys at least comes in, under 11, 12%. If I can get 7, 8% on Chubb or on Robinson, I mean, I'm all over that. I will happily make them a fixture of my plans this week. And I think both of those guys are set up in spots to have potentially over 20 points fairly easily. Let's get one more play of the week from you, and then we're going to head on to our sneaky athlete of the week.
I do want to bring up a point too. I mean, we're talking about the Steelers, right? One of the best, teams up against the running back. But you look at the past 3 games, right? They faced the Packers. They gave up 81 yards on the ground to A.J. Dillon, 48 on the ground to Aaron Jones, and then a combined, 66 yards in the air with 4 receptions. Then the next week, Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams combined, 95 yards on the ground combined and 34 in the air combined with 5 receptions. And then Alex Collins goes out there, puts up 100 yards and a touchdown on him. Meanwhile, DJ Dallas still gets 5 receptions for 33 yards. So, I mean, that's like you're talking about a team that is great up against running back, but maybe we're seeing them lose a little bit of steam over the past 3 games. And now they're not facing, we're not going to be rolling out running back by committee most likely. So you're not going to see 2 different running backs, 2 different running backs, 2 different running backs. It's going to be the Nick Chubb show, or at least what we think is going to be the Nick Chubb show. So if those fantasy points actually get combined into just one running back with probably the best running team that they're going to face so far this year, I mean, we could see a massive, massive game. So I like that take.
I'm not living in fear of the Pittsburgh defense anymore. And Nick Chubb, the last 2 times he's played them, he's broken off big plays against these guys. He has no fear of the Steelers, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with my next one being Michael Pittman. I think that...
You and everybody else, you swallow that chalk, bro.
I was going to go T.Y. Hilton, right? But, we don't know if he's going to be healthy or not. And T.Y. Hilton just has a tendency to get long bombs. I think that Carson Wentz, he's been chucking the ball around a whole ton. Mm-hmm. So, Michael Pittman, he's somebody that I don't know how – I understand the chalk aspect, right? But he hasn't had, a blow-up game where, he's going to break lineups. And I understand, the whole concept of, hey, he's going to be playing the Titans. Hey, he's going to be one of the most rostered player or most roster guys. But when you come to build your lineups, right, and you're sitting here and I almost did it. You're
sitting here, you're looking at it.
I was on a train and I almost took it to the station. But, you're in these bigger contests, right? You're looking at Emmanuel Sanders up against Miami. You're looking at Marquez Callaway, who has big playability, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, T. Higgins. I don't know if any of these guys, if Pittman is going to make you come off of these guys. Now, I understand the projection, right? And I understand everybody talking about it. But when you go to build your lineups, do you really want a guy who's, let me see what his best game thus far this season has been, to be a part of a major contest? You're talking about, let's see, sorry, the camera's right in the way, 23 points and 20, and then another 23-pointer. So I understand that that's good, but he's not giving you this tremendous through the roof upside. He's hitting where it starts to be sexy. But
what do you think he's going to come in at? If you had to guess a percentage of his ownership in the Millie Maker, what do you think?
Probably 8%. If I had to put a number on it,
I'm going to guess 23%.
You think it's going to be that high?
I think he's going to be over. I think he's the most owned wide receiver on the slate.
Whoa. Okay, that's tremendous. I definitely do not have him anywhere close to that.
I have him projected as the number 1 played wide receiver on the entire slate.
Wow. I'm looking
I just think he's going to be so popular with the amount of people that are going to want to play Henry or Brown, and they're going to look to correlate it. It's the highest over-under game. You have a super condensed Titans offense now with no Julio. So I think a lot of people are going to want to play Henry because there's no you have Eckler, who's going to be a health question mark. You have no Zeke on the slate, no Cook on the slate, no Saquon McCaffrey. I think people are going to play Henry. You have a lot of people are going to want to play Brown. And then people are going to look at, see, Indy's actually favored in this game. Who are you going to play on Indy? Are you going to play Henry and Taylor together? No, probably not. You could play Taylor Brown, right? You could do that. But I think a lot of people are going to do Henry Pittman, or they're going to play Brown Pittman. And I think just that salary is so attractive based on, especially he just came off an island game where he looked like Randy Moss. I think Pittman's going to be over 20% personally, which is tough because I really want to play Pittman. I think all of my Pittman lineups are just going to be full-on Wentz stacks personally.
See, and obviously you're going to stack Wentz. Wentz is the big, number in this one. And T.Y. Hilton, you're going to mix in some Jonathan Taylor because he can catch passes out of the backfield, although that hasn't been necessarily the case so far this year. But what I've done a little bit of research on this from week to week, right? Because I've been going to, Roto Grinders, I believe, gives you the roster levels after the slate's end. And I was looking at it, and anytime that you have a mid-range receiver, that's a possession receiver, somebody like a Corey Davis, for example, with a good matchup or something along those lines, that has other big play receivers around them, like a Jalen Waddle who can take it to the house at any point in time. Who else was I bringing up? Let's say Marquez Callaway, Emmanuel Sanders. Anytime that you're surrounded by guys who have big playability, the roster percentage in comparison with what Pro Football Focus projects is actually lower when you come to a possession receiver. on average, because I think that people have this like cash mentality of like, oh, this is definitely a cash play. He's not a tournament play. I need a guy who can get me 2 touchdowns and 150 yards in order to win this contest.
Yeah.
And so people tend to gravitate away or, push themselves away from actually going with a possession receiver, which is what Michael Pittman is. And Michael Pittman is somebody that I view not necessarily as a lineup breaker, like full disclosure, like I don't think he's going to get you 30 points, but if he can get you this 20-point floor, then he's going to keep you in the running and allow your other upside type players to make it in. And I think he's a very safe play, and I think that he still has upside in order to get you there. But he's not going to lose you any contest this week. I don't know if he's going to win you a contest, but I'm pivoting towards him. And I think that his roster strip is going to be lower than the 15% that's projected by Pro Football Focus.
Yeah, I have 15% loaded up for PFF too, and I think that they're too low. I think they're too low. We're gonna find out. I mean, they have Higgins and him projected for the same, and I just think the psychology of it. I think people are gonna enter their lineups and they're gonna remember Higgins ruining their life last week, and they're gonna remember Pittman mossing dudes on Sunday Night Football. We'll come right back. We're going to talk quickly. I'm going to hit my sneaky athlete of the week. If Chase wants to add one, he can. Then we're going to quickly run through our GPP roulette. Then we're going to get out of here. That was our plays of the week. We talked about Pittman. We talked about DJ Moore. We talked about Nick Chubb. We talked about Devontae Parker. And who was the last one that you talked about? Kenneth Gainwell.
Yes.
There we go. All right. We'll be right back with my sneaky athlete of the week.
Bye, guys.
All right, the sneaky athlete of the week this week. We got our friend Gary Barnage, our friend Jeff Driscoll hanging out with us here on this graphic. The sneaky athlete of the week this week is a guy that we don't even know how athletic he is because he was not able to run at his pro day. He was not able to run at a combine. So he's truly sneaky athletic. Eric Ebron is ruled out this week, which means that the former Penn State Nittany Lion, Pat Freiermuth, gets an opportunity to serve as the unquestioned tight end 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's down at, I believe, $3,600 on DraftKings. I don't think you're sneaking anything by anybody by playing Freiermuth this week, but I'm certainly going to take a few stabs, especially as a potential pairing with Nick Chubb in my lineups. Pat Freiermuth, definitely going to be sneakily athletic into your lineups. This week, I'm going to go and project a sneaky 6 catches for 64 yards and 1 touchdown for Patty Fries. We'll be right back here for your GPP roulette. Chase, you ready to spin the wheel today, buddy?
I'm ready, dude. I'm ready. I'm ready to roll out some Jarrett McKinnon.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Please, God, no. Please, God, no. We do not play the Thursday to Monday slate. And we don't have to play frickin' Jarek McKinnon. We'll be right back
too funny.
with GPP roulette. All right. For anyone that does not know how this works, GPP roulette, we spin a wheel. We spin this lovely roulette simulator that you can see here if you're watching this in the video version on the screen. I go through Twitter this morning and I just look at the first 36 names I see. I write them down in my journal and I assign them a number from 1 to 36. Whatever I land on with the wheel, we plug right into the lineup, and then Chase and I are going to have to build a $1 million lineup around whoever it gives us. We're going to go ahead. We're going to spin that wheel right here. First number.
Uh-oh, I'm nervous, dude. I'm nervous.
3. We got a 3.
Whoa.
All right, number 3. I got to see who we got here. Would you look at that? Chase, one of your guys you talked about today. It shouldn't be that surprising because everybody is talking about him on Twitter today. So I think he had about 4 different entries on the wheel. But it is Kenneth Gainwell. Chase, you famously said you'd take Kenneth Gainwell over Clyde Edwards-Helaire in Dynasty this summer, and we made a lot of fun of you. Looking less bad these days. Looking less bad.
I told y'all. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell's a beast. So, he was in college. He obviously, pushed Antonio Gibson out of a starting running back role, which I thought was insane in the first place. But, I mean, this guy's sneaky athletic. In fact, he would have been my sneaky athlete or whatever you called it, although he's not really sneaky because everybody's talking about him. But, I mean, he ended up adding on. So, the biggest thing was he ended up not going back to school and taking the year off because of COVID, because he had 4 relatives that actually passed away from COVID. So, he wanted to stay safe. But what that allowed him to do was to get into NFL shape versus staying in college shape, because you want to stay smaller. You want to stay more athletic. You want to be the best athlete on the field in college, right?
Mhm.
With the pros, you want to be fit. You want to make sure that you're big enough to be able to take hits. It's not just about the athleticism. It's about being able to play, in the pros with other professional athletes. So he was able to put on, I believe, 10 to 15 pounds in this time that he was working. He was able to do it the right way. A lot of people will go in and they'll just try and add on a ton of weight by the time the combine hits, right? And they'll try to make sure that their BMI is great, and they'll try to make sure that they're still fast while they're doing it. But that ends up like hindering their ability to do it the right way and to put it on in proper form. And so you have Kenneth Gainwell, who was able to do that and take the time. And that's why we see a lot of second-year breakouts. Well, he's going to break out in his rookie year because he was able to do it the correct ways. And I think he's going to be a
Jordan
smash.
Howard has anything to say about it.
Yeah, unless Jordan Howard. God.
All right, well, maybe we'll get Jordan Howard as our second play. God, I hope
don't
not.
say
That'd be
that.
tough. All right, let's spin that wheel one more time here. Who else is going into our lineup? We're rolling. 36, last guy on the list. Let's pull it up here.
Do not say
And
Jordan Howard.
it's not Jordan Howard. It's a guy that a lot of people love to talk about on Twitter all the time. Someone that apparently was a little bit overhyped this year by some. Maybe one person in particular on this show is guilty of that. They're playing in the game against Seattle. It's Laviska Shenault. We've got him locked into our lineup. So we got Shenault, we got Gainwell. That means we got a few cheap options here. We can build whoever we want in this one. Chase, I'll leave it to you. Who do you want to play a quarterback here in this lineup?
I mean, should we go the route that we talked about earlier, where we play a quarterback with the wide receiver, stack? Like, this is a great opportunity to do so. And, Hurts can be relevant while passing to Gainwell, hopefully.
Yeah.
We could see, either Devonta Smith or Wes Watkins type build, which I said was very volatile, but this could be the perfect time to do it. And then we could just go with studs off the back and just, ram it home that way. I definitely do not want to build through Laviska Shenault, because I think that's going to be a very high-scoring game. So I think we have to build through Kenny Gainwell, or just build a completely different lineup, because it is cheap, by the way. Like, we only have
Well,
9.
I want to go off of like one of the guys we put in this thing. It's just always a little bit more fun that way instead of just ignoring them. So let's lock in Hurts there. You can have Hurts at quarterback. Our RB2 here, well, really our RB1. I mean, we can spend as much as we want. Chase, how are you feeling here? We could play Swift to come as our bring back option essentially in this Philly stack. We could spend all the way up for Henry, for Kamara. What are you feeling here?
So real quick, what about we pivot off that for a brief second and we actually look at Wes Watkins, because AJ Parker is questionable or out. He's hurt. He's the slot corner over there, and he's like the 5th slot corner that's played because the Detroit Lions just keep cycling through the secondary. Like, it is bad over there for injuries. We have no idea who's going to end up playing the slot over there. It could be a safety. It could be anybody. So if Wes Watkins gets an opportunity to get 2 balls deep, 3 balls deep, and we're hoping
on a balls team.
Balls deep. Like, I'm talking about balls deep all day. But we're hoping that Jalen Hurts actually gets his value through the passing game in this one, maybe not the running game, and they can keep it secure. I think that Wes Watkins is an excellent play at, what is he, 4K? Oh my God, 4K.
I'm going to keep playing Quez Watkins until it eventually works.
I know, it has to hit, right, eventually.
Okay, so we got Quez, we got Gainwell, we got Hurts. I'm going to go ahead then, and I'm going to play Swift. Yeah, because if we're playing,
he finally broke the 7K threshold. That's crazy.
That's finally. Like, we're playing this game, we got to play someone from the lines. And I mean, I love TJ Hawkinson. I think we both love Hawkinson, but he has just not given us a reason to want to play him anytime lately. Swift has given us that reason repeatedly. Dan Campbell came out today. He said, "You literally can't give the ball to Swift enough." That's what I want to hear.
Which is amazing. Let me go ahead and throw this in there too. By the way, Anthony Harris, the safety that is responsible for covering the tight ends for the Eagles, is actually out. Is most likely going to be out. He's doubtful.
Okay.
So I know that we don't want to play Hawkinson, but I just want to leave that out there as an option, because your top guy, the guy who was, the safety for the Vikings who shut tight ends down, is now playing for the Eagles, who have been shutting tight ends down, and he's not there anymore. Well, he's not there.
Okay, so we got 3 spots left here plus a defense. So you have plenty of salary to do. We may as well spend up here at least one of these wide receiver spots, because we can't even spend up a tight end if we wanted to this week. Who's your guy? Pick anyone you want here. We could go all the way up to Cup and go to Diggs. Williams, McLaurin, Chase. Pick anyone you want, and I'll pick the flex spot depending on whatever wide receiver you pick.
I mean, the Jets are the obvious answer because they have Brandon Equals, right? He's a 6th-round rookie starting at cornerback, and he's going to be on the side that Jamar Chase plays the most. They're most likely trying, bracket covering him, but I don't know if that's going to work. So I do want to bring that up. You brought up a great point with DJ Moore. I like DJ Moore a lot, but I think AJ Brown is actually the right way to go. Is he going to be too much chalk? And if so, I mean, maybe Laviska Shenault pulls us off the chalk completely, because who's going to play Laviska Shenault with this lineup right here?
I'll tell you what, the last thing I'm worried about is the chalk, because we are playing Wes Watkins and Laviska Shenault.
And Kenny Gainwell and Jalen Hurts.
I think Gainwell's going to be pretty popular.
This is the weirdest lineup of all time.
But
if we win, this is going to be like a chasing the dragon.
Like, I think Hurts will be fairly popular. He always is. And I think Gainwell is going to be popular. And Swift is going to have some ownership, nothing crazy. But I mean, I think we can play whatever we want if you have a lineup with Shenault and Quez. I think Shenault and Quez are going to be like 2% each. So
it's got to be less than 10% for Gainwell and Jalen Hurts, right?
I think Gainwell is going to be like 15%.
But I'm talking about combined. Like, having those two in the lineups has to be less than 10%.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, probably less than 5%.
Probably. Yeah. I agree with that.
So, I mean, that keeps us out of the chalk right there for the most part. And then Laviska Shenault.
Right. What do we got here? I'm just going to put in, like, we can figure out the defense after. I'm just going to put in like a placeholder just so I know how much salary we really have left.
Yeah, that's what I like doing too.
So, all right, I'm going to pick this last
chunk
spot.
of change.
We got a good chunk of change. And so, look, this guy has owned me repeatedly. I mean, I was considering playing Pittman to pair with AJ Brown, but I mean, I don't even understand how we could possibly play. Actually, you know what? You mentioned Hawkinson. What if we went with Hawkinson at tight end because of your Anthony Harris theory? We bump out Swift, and then we play Taylor.
I like Swift a lot this week. I think that he's going to smash, but the 7K pricing makes that intriguing. I want to view something, right? Because Tampa Bay is like the 3rd worst team in terms of the dose score. Like, they're terrible. And
right. So you're thinking Kamara potentially?
I think Kamara. I know, and he's not going to be chalk because Tampa Bay's run defense is so good, and he's so expensive.
What if we did this? What if we went? Here we go. How do we think about this lineup? We play Hawk here as our bring back with Philly. We play Hurts, Gainwell, Quez, Hawk. That's going to be so low owned. We can kind of do whatever else we want in this lineup.
Yep.
We play Pittman and Brown. We play Shenault, which we have to. We play Kamara. We still have $2,800 left to pick a defense. That could put us in. We could play the Seahawks D, and I actually don't mind playing a defense against my wide receiver because essentially force them to have to pass.
I don't mind that either, but I'd rather play Chicago up against San Francisco, to be honest.
Okay, I'm fine with that too. All right. So we could play this one. Let's lock that in here. There we go. So we're going to play Jalen Hurts, Kenny Gainwell, Alvin Kamara, Laviska Shenault, Wes Watkins, AJ Brown, TJ Hawkinson, Michael Pittman Jr., and the Bears D. That's a wrap for today. Chase, I know you got parties to get to. I got to get off dinner. I got to get this hat off. I got to go shower. Chase, where can the people find you? Thank you for joining us today.
You guys can go check me out over there at FF_intervention on Twitter. Join our circle _ for fantasy intervention. You guys can go check out the dose score, fantasyintervention.com/DOCE. It's dump off containment efficiency. And of course, actually, my article just came out for Player Profiler, like while we're on the show.
There you go.
It's out. You guys can go check out the content over there, playerprofiler.com. Go check out my article on matchups to target for this week. I also have a couple sleepers in there, like David Johnson, who we didn't get a chance to talk about.
David Johnson.
But yeah, it's go check out the article over there on Player Profiler, and we have this Trophy Smack stuff that's been flying out the door. I'm very, very excited for it. TrophySmack.com. Go check out the Smack Zone over there, where we're actually teaching you how to talk shit to your league mates, and, in fun ways, of course, and play some head games with Mike, listen to some music with Cooter, and then I do waiver wires to trash, which are guys that everybody's talking about picking up waiver wires, and it just makes no sense to me.
Absolutely. I love all of it. Chase, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to go check out your article right away. Make sure you check out the dose score. It's a big way to help get a little bit of that edge, especially if you're looking down to spend down at the running back position in DFS and season long, whatever it be. You can find me on Twitter, FF_RTDB. You can find my work up on Player Profiler, including my Week 8 DFS column, which talked a little bit about some of the stuff we got on the show today, goes a little bit deeper as well. And Chase, this was a blast. Thanks for coming on. Everybody, good luck with your Week 8 lineups, both DFS, seasonal, whatever. For anyone that listened to both our show and the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, thank you for sticking with us here on a Saturday or whenever you end up listening to this. And we will make sure to have a fun Sunday with you all. God bless and have a good one, everybody. See ya. Happy Halloween.
I better get happy or winning.